Welcome back to Her Voice is Power. Today we have Liz Center with us, and she's going to share the story of her son. Take it away.
Hello, my name's Liz. I've been a member here at Apostolic Center for 16 years. I've been married to my husband, Ben, for 13 years. We have two boys together. Our oldest is Jameson, he's 7, and then Joel is our youngest at 6.
It's awesome. Okay, so take us back to your firstborn.
So, Jameson was a rough pregnancy, but a perfect baby. He came 10 days after my due date and was a whopping 11 pounds. And I said,
And she survived.
I survived. I'm here to tell you the tale. That's the actual testimony.
Yeah.
But he was a great baby, and he tricked me into thinking that I was a really good parent, but really he was just a really good child. So we thought after he was a year old, let's do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got pregnant with Joel. And that's when our journey kind of took a not so easy turn, but a really fulfilling turn. Do you want me to go ahead with this testimony?
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it. So how far along were you when you...
So I was beginning my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. I had already had my anatomy scan. We knew that Joel was going to be a boy. We were super excited to have 2 boys back to back. You got to just pass the clothes down to the next one. Don't have to do a whole lot of prep. So everything was easy. He was a dream pregnancy. Sometimes I would forget I was pregnant because I was chasing around his older brother. And so we went to we'd already had the anatomy scan. We went to did an echocardiogram because we had a family history of like some heart condition. So that was just routine for us in my pregnancies. And we went, and I remember the ultrasound tech was joking with us about having 2 humongous children.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was super lighthearted. And she, the heart looked good. Everything was fine. And she said, well, I'll just get some measurements of everything. It's been a few weeks. So she gets the measurements, and you could, like, I know they're not supposed to tell you anything's going on, but you could tell, like her energy completely shifted, and she started taking a lot of pictures, and I knew she was up at his head. So she said, I'm going to go talk to the doctor. I'll be right back. But she tried to play it off like nothing's going on. And I turned to Ben and I said, I think something's wrong. And Ben is always the optimist in these situations. And he's like, no, you're
Pregnant.
you're just worried. It's no big deal. And the doctor came in and he sat down. He asked us a bunch of preliminary questions about family history, genetic history. And then he said the 3 words that will be cemented in my brain forever: something has changed. So those 3 words started us on a trajectory of our journey with Joel. And
how many weeks were you now?
I was probably maybe 26 or 7 weeks along. And yeah, so he told us something had changed. He began to describe that the fluid around Joel's brain wasn't draining properly. So there's ventricles that drain that fluid down your spine, and his was building up. And this was not the case 3 weeks before. So something had changed from those 3 weeks when we did the anatomy scan. And he told us the condition was called hydrocephalus. And I have no medical background whatsoever. So my first question was, is this terminal? Like, are you telling me this is the end? And he said, no, it doesn't change the lifespan at all. And then, he began to tell us some hard truths about what Joel's life may look like. But we walked out probably looking like zombies. Like we walked out, but we were optimistic. Like, God's got this. Everybody has a story of something crazy that happened during their pregnancy. It's just going to get better. And so, of course, we had a lot of follow-up appointments to that, and things did not get better. Not one time did they say, oh, is the fluid's getting less. No, it was significantly getting worse each time. So they felt that the best step for us was to go to the Children's Hospital in Chicago. And this was probably 33 weeks along at that point. So we go to the Children's Hospital in Chicago. We started at 7 a.m. and we did probably every test that you can do on a pregnant person. We had multiple ultrasounds, blood work, all kinds of appointments, all kinds of questions asked. And then we ended it with a 2 hour long MRI because they needed, good pictures of his brain. That was traumatic, just sitting in that MRI machine for that long. And at the end of the day, we're exhausted. We go into a conference room and we sat at a table, probably with, it felt like 142 doctors. It was probably 12 doctors and surgeons and specialists, um, all really top of their field. And they told us, what they thought Joel's life was going to look like. And I won't even repeat the condition they said his brain was in. They basically couldn't see that he had a brain because the fluid was so pressed against it. And yeah, they just said, things didn't look good. They really couldn't give us any hope for any future. Every question we asked was kind of a dead end. And then probably the most traumatic part of all of it was this woman who I'm sure had great intention. She was a doctor there. I'm sure that this is a tool she learned, but it was so traumatic for me. She said, do you have a name for your son? We said, we think we're going to name him Joel. And she proceeded to line up everything that Joel wouldn't be able to do with his name. So Joel probably will never walk. Joel probably will never talk. Joel, when he is born, won't breathe on his own. Joel won't be able to eat on his own. Joel may live in a vegetative state for his whole life. And to me, I wrote this down because that was, like I said, that was pretty traumatic. For me, that was unbearable because we believe Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. So putting Joel's name with that prognosis to me was just cementing his fate. That was it. And so that was the point where I was like inconsolable, just in grief. Like, this is it. This is what we have to look for. I wasn't really trusting God. I was just trusting myself and how I could control it because I know a bit of a control freak in stressful situations. I think my way is the best way sometimes. And that moment is when I had to say, okay, is it my way or is it God's way? Yeah. Am I going to look at this through my lens or through God's lens? And thankfully, Ben always looks at things through God's lens, so he could pull me out of that. But we were due May 9th was Joel's due date. And after all these tests and everything, we still went, I think we had 2 to 3 appointments a week. And on April 18th, so 3 weeks before his due date, they said, yeah, we're going to take him today. He's a big boy. He's big. You're both not small people. Your children aren't small people. For those watching, my husband's 6'4". I'm not short. They didn't have a lot of hope for his size. It was obviously going to have to be a C-section because I'd had a previous C-section. This child had brain issues. They didn't want him going through, a birthing process. So they said, April 18th, this is the day. And I said, respectfully, I don't like the date April 18th. Can we push it back to a better date? And they said, okay, how about tomorrow? We really need this baby to come out. And I said, oh, April 19th. I don't like that date either. Sorry. And they said, well, tomorrow's Good Friday. How do you feel about Good Friday? And I said, okay, I guess I'll do April 19th then, because I knew some miracles had come out of a Good Friday you might have heard about too. Yes. So I thought, well, we can use all the miracles we can get. So Joel was born on April 19th, 2019. And I remember the room was silent. When Jameson was born, they had teachers. They were screaming. He was huge. I mean, it was loud. I remember the chaos. And when Joel was born, you could hear a pin drop. They had the NICU team on standby, which I didn't even say this. We thought we were going to have to deliver in Chicago. So that was a huge miracle for us that Carl was a high enough level of NICU that they would take Joel, and they had a neurosurgeon on staff that was comfortable performing the surgery that he would have to have when he was born. So we were able to deliver in Carl, which was a miracle in itself because having a 1.5-year-old son at home, I didn't want to be 3 hours from my other child, torn in half. So that in itself was amazing that we had that so close. And we're in the silent room. It's a very heavy energy. Everyone is not like they're not excited because they don't know what's going to come.
Yeah.
A very different atmosphere from when you're, holding up that baby. So I think he came out quiet. Nobody said a word. We didn't even know he was out until they popped him up and they said, "Dad, get a picture." And Ben took a picture, and that was it. That was our glimpse of Joel. And they took him over, and the NICU team's surrounding him, and they're getting ready to take him off. And he let out the biggest cry, which they told me he wouldn't cry. So that, here we go, another miracle. And I just felt in that moment, okay, if he can cry, they said he wasn't going to cry, what else is God going to do?
Yeah.
So now I'm crying like Joel. But that's basically how our story started with Joel. He's defied odds many times. There's still a lot of miracles we're hoping for with Joel, but I've got a list of things that we've seen so far.
I would love to hear it.
Okay, so just some of the miracles in Joel's life is after multiple testing of us, multiple testing of Joel, they cannot find any genetic syndrome or reason or cause that would cause hydrocephalus. Typically, hydrocephalus is paired with something. So sometimes a child will have Down syndrome and hydrocephalus or some kind of condition in hydrocephalus. Joel just has hydrocephalus, which is pretty amazing because it's frustrating when they can't put a name to it, but like that's it. We don't have another thing we have to worry about. So that's huge. Obviously, he's always been able to breathe on his own. Not only has he been able to eat on his own, but he could take a bottle, he could nurse, he could do things any other child could do that they told me he wouldn't be able to. His overall health is really good. He doesn't get sick very often. His immune system's great. Um, I think last year they told me he had the best attendance in his school class because he just doesn't miss school. Maybe they wish he would. But give us a break, Joel. But he's had significant improvements in his mobility, his muscle tone, his vision. He's had improvements in his communication. We didn't know if Joel would ever be able to express his wants and needs. He can express joy. He tells us no. You've heard it yourself. He gets in trouble for saying no. He knows he's in trouble. He doesn't care that he's in trouble. He's able to laugh. He has a sense of humor. These are just things that we really did not know if we were going to get here. He's able to request songs. His favorite song is Go Tell It on the Mountain and Deep and Wide. And everyone in my family has a requirement that they must sing that song a minimum of 4 times before he is happy. That it doesn't matter if you can't sing, he will request it from you. And then not just miracles in Joel, but there's been miracles in our family. So I've had a renewed trust. I have renewed peace, faith. God is still in the process of showing me how to relinquish control. That's not something that comes very easy for me, but where I was 7 years ago versus where I am now, leaps and bounds. Jameson is an extremely emotionally intelligent child because he's watched this journey. He's very empathetic. He is able to see the needs of kids around him. Anyone that maybe is neurodivergent or just doesn't socially do the things that most kids do, he loves them. Like he's a friend to multiple children. I've had many parents that have children with special needs that have come up to me and thanked me, and I'm like, listen, I didn't do it. It was mostly Joel. Like Joel has trained him for this moment. But that's a miracle because that's not something that's always easy to do. I have trouble with that, and so God's given him that, through this journey. Another miracle is God has strengthened our marriage. Ben and I have always been friends. We've always been best friends. We love each other. We have a good marriage, but this has done something that no other issue we could have gone through would have done for us.
I think with stuff like that, you can either grow together, you can
Yes.
grow apart.
Yeah, I don't know what the statistic is, There's statistics of people that have children that are sick, couples that have children with special needs, and there is an increase in divorce rates for that because it is a huge strain. It can be a huge strain on your marriage, but because God has been in the forefront of it all, he's just he's turned that situation into something good for our marriage. I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. I don't think Ben would want to do it with anyone else. And we both have a sense of humor, which has been huge for this, because I think you have to have a sense of humor when you go through things like that. And God just knew what I would need in a partner and what Ben would need in a partner for this situation, because it's a calling to have a child like Joel. It doesn't always feel like a calling. Sometimes you think this is a curse, but it's a holy calling where we're at. And so I'm just glad I get to do that with Ben. He's a really good father. He prays for Joel every night. He tells him he's healed every night before he goes to bed. What's wrong with me?
You're human.
Yeah. And I sometimes when I can't find that strength, Ben always is the one that finds that. Yeah, that's pretty much our story in the Center household with our little Joel, who gets better every day. But yeah.
Our boys got to go to Nana Becky's
Yes.
together, and you were saying that it's helped Jameson, and I feel like it's helped my boys too. I've gotten pictures of, Leo and Louie were so good to so and so that has special needs, and I feel like being around Joel did help them.
He eases
and they
them in.
love and they love him. I have a picture of Salem laying on Joel, and I'm like, Becky, get him off Joel. But,
no. Joel would have gotten him
they
off.
all loved Joel.
Yes.
Loved being in daycare with him, and as parents and as friends, what's helpful to a family that's going. You never want to say the wrong thing,
No.
and I know sometimes it's just knowing that I'm covering you in prayer. I mean, I remember that, and it's, what do you say?
Yeah.
You just, sometimes all you can do is cry and pray with them, but what brings life to you?
I think just acknowledging that things are different, because sometimes not you, but sometimes I'm like, does anyone know that Joel, like, does anyone know we're in this situation? Are we just invisible? And I think when people just acknowledge, like, I'm praying for you, or what do you need? That's always a good one. Or my favorite is, how's Joel doing? Like, I just love when
what wins did he get this week?
Yeah. What's going on in Joel's life? And sometimes I'm like, nothing. But just, I will never forget that someone asked me. It's just the gift of presence, just being there and saying, I'm here if you need me. You're not invisible. Like, I think people don't want to say the wrong thing, so they avoid it sometimes. And just, I don't even mind if people say the wrong thing. I just want you to say something.
Being transparent myself, sometimes I worry, like, my kid's gonna say, not just Joel, but to any kid, what's wrong with them?
Yes,
and
we get that. We will, Joel, for anyone that doesn't know Joel, he uses a wheelchair, and we're working on walking. There's a good hope that Joel will walk one day, but there's tools to get there. So first is his wheelchair. That gives us the easiest mobility. He also has what's called a gait trainer, kind of like a walker. A walker will come next, but it kind of holds him in place. He uses that. He hates it, but so typically people see Joel in a wheelchair, and when he was little, no one said anything. Like, it looked like a stroller kind of. And now that Joel is 6, he's got a little more height to him, a little more.
Of course, he's tall.
A little more length to his limbs. The kids, I'm sure adults notice, but the kids are like, and the thing I get the most, like I said, Ben and I have a sense of humor, so some parents might not find this funny, but we get, what's that baby doing? They always think, is he a baby? Is he not a baby? And I love it. I want them to ask questions. I want them to acknowledge it. I'll say, this is Joel. One time we had a child, he had a significant scar after his surgery, and there was a child that was asking about it. And I remember their mom was holding him. She said, "Oh, Joel had to have a surgery." She was in the nursing field, so she understood it probably better than I even did. And she kind of explained the process. And she said, "And that's what makes Joel different. Just like you have freckles, Joel has this." And I thought, what I'm gonna use that. So I'm learning from other people. I didn't even know what I was doing in this journey, but just another thing is books. Like, there's books about, you know, parents with special needs. Actually, I have one written down. Let me see. The Gift of the Unexpected is my favorite book by Gillian Benfield. When navigating this, she has a child that has Down syndrome, and she had a very she explains a cookie cutter view of what her life should be like, as did I was going to have my two boys, and that was going to be great. And then she, like me, was in a room, and they said, oh, something's different. And so she writes about, not just navigating your life as a parent of a child with special needs, but that it's a gift. Like, this change in my plans is bettering me, it's bettering my family. And that's how I feel. She talks a lot about the power of and. So I can grieve this situation I'm in, and I can be grateful. And I think that's been really powerful for us. So yeah, if people just get your kids around somebody that's different, I
Yeah.
think. You know?
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think parents just don't want their kids to be
Yeah.
invisible.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
it. I want what everyone with a typical child wants. I want him to have meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
I want him to have a bright future. I want friends to come up to him like they do Jameson and say, what's up? Now, he may yell at them. He may not give the same response, but just having a child say hi to him, to me, I know he notices that. I know he comprehends what's going on. So yeah, just not being invisible. A really good way to put it.
So I know you alluded to, how this has helped Jameson with compassion, but
Mhm.
can you share some of their bond? I know you said sometimes he'll go up to Jameson's room and they'll lay together, or up to
Yeah.
your guys' room, and
Yeah.
they just lay together.
Yeah,
And
they like to watch television together on my bed. That's a huge thing for them. Is they just sit there, and if you know Joel, he's not content for long. He likes to move around. He wants you to move him around. And with Jameson, I mean, they can be up there to the point where I'm like, is everyone okay? Because they're just content around each other, and they fight like brothers fight. I mean, Jameson will lay on him, Joel will smack him. I mean, there's a very typical brotherly relationship that happens. And I think that they better each other. I think they love each other. And I think that being around a typical and non-typical person, that's going to give them a lot of just it's just going to better their life. Like, it's just adding value to it. It's not what we thought, but it's better than what we thought.
yeah.
So.
As far as a support system, how did that play a role?
Well, our church is a huge support system. Our family is a huge support system, but I think families all to me, family should
It's
always step up.
obvious, yeah.
Yeah, that your family's gonna do it. I knew Ben's parents, my siblings, Ben's siblings, that they're all good people. We knew they were gonna do what we needed. They were always gonna step in and help. But our church didn't have to. Our church, we not that we didn't have children with needs before, but Joel's needs are a little more significant than maybe what some people have seen. And our children's department with Brother John and Sister Michaela have, in my opinion, gone above and beyond what I would have ever expected someone to do. I've heard horror stories of children that were asked to leave the church. Parents that they said this is too much. Kids are too loud, too chaotic. They cause too much disruptance with other children. And we have never been made to feel that way. If anything, I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? This seems like a lot. They've given Joel one on one. We have a sensory room in our church if Joel or other children that may get overwhelmed in the service need it. He's always been a part of our Camp Mac programs, to the point where I was like, no, 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 no. And they're like, yes, 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 yes. He's going to come. They
Knowing
always,
that they want him.
yes, they want him, and they adapt the activities to what Joel may like. We have a really funny story. This is a total caveat, and Brother John may be mad that I'm telling this, but we had art night with our church, and they said, yeah, bring Joel. And Ben and I were super excited because it was like no kids for the
Date
night. So
night.
we went out to eat, And we were almost finished with our meal. We got through it, and we get a call from Brother John. He says, Joel, got sick. You're gonna have to come pick him up. But I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we had forgotten to tell him that Joel does not like the texture of Play-Doh.
Oh.
Like he he threw up all over John. And we're like, was he playing with anything? Like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
He wasn't sick. And John's like, well, yeah, he was playing with Play-Doh. And we're like, but now John, who
Don't give him Play-Doh.
Yeah, John just changed his shirt and went on about his business like it was nothing. And I'm like, this is just crazy. They're too nice to us. But I mean, our church is just amazing. If you're listening to this and you don't have a church and you live in this area, I cannot think of any place else that you could go and your children with needs would be taken care of like this. And if you don't live in this area, there are so many churches. The UPCI has Able Ministries. You can look it up on Facebook, and it's ministries that adapt to children with special needs, and find one of those churches. I mean, it's so valuable. It's so valuable to have a community, because a lot of people just don't get it. And why would they get it? They've not had to go through it. So finding, those Facebook groups, or just a mom that may have a child with needs. I mean, there's moms in our church, and we just know each other. Like, we just know, like, you just know that they've gone through that journey, and it's so great to find those people, and they can give you advice on IEPs, which are the individual education plans for the kids and once they get to school. And you got to do a little work. You have to find those people. It takes time, but once you do, like, you surround yourself with that support system in the community, and it just makes life so much better, so much easier.
Awesome. I do want to give you, I respect you so much. And every time I hear you get up and sing, I swear you get all the songs about.
I wrote that down.
Did you?
Yes.
You get all the songs about healing, and every time you sing it, it ministers to me.
Yeah.
And I believe God is not done.
I don't. Yeah.
And I know as Joel continues to grow, I know he's just going to continue to make gain after gain. But I'm sure it's not always easy for you to sing those songs, but you get behind the anointing and just, I mean, I just told my parents, I'm like, Liz is our star.
Oh my word. I wrote this down. My ADHD brain, God has to find a way to get through to me, and it's songs.
Mm-hmm.
When we got Joel's diagnosis, in the chaos of all of these terrible things and news being given to us, this song, like a radio, turned up in my brain. And we don't even sing it in church, but it's like, I think Donnie McClurkin maybe sings it, and it's the I've got a feeling everything's gonna be all right. And I'm like, out of all the songs in this moment, like, but that song carried us through. When Joel had surgery, it was the hallelujah, I am not alone, like Psalm 23. Just and then they started asking me to sing Believe for It, More Than Able, Not Afraid, He's Able. And I'll let you know, 5 years ago, I said, I'll do it, God, but this is a sick joke. Like, this is not, I'm going to be obedient, but this is not okay. And now I've grown in my walk with God. I've grown in my faith, and I can sing those things. I actually believe the words I'm singing. So sometimes if you're going through that journey, just be obedient. Fake it till you make it. And now I can sing, and there's an anointing that falls on me because I really believe what I'm saying. I believe for it. I believe God said it. I believe it. I believe that's going to happen. I believe he's more than able. I believe exceedingly abundantly more than I could ask or think. That's going to happen with Joel. I was not born that way. I had to get there. I had to pray a lot. I had to read the Bible a lot to get my faith there. But yeah, it probably wasn't appropriate to say.
No, I love it. As Joel's getting his miracle, it's awesome to see what you and the miracles you and Ben have got, in your walk with God. And I mean, we're huge Jameis fans. That's what my
Jason Prime.
when my oldest boy he cannot say Jameson. It's so big. Jameis's mom or Jameis.
Yes, we love it.
Leo Jameson. But we love your family and always praying, always believing alongside you. And I really appreciate you sharing Joel's story. And I can't wait to have you back on to share even
come.
more.
Yes,
I believe for it.
I believe for it.
Thank you again for tuning in. If you would like, share, and subscribe, we will see you next time.